Assal Rad is a senior fellow at the National Iranian American Council. She joins us from Los Angeles by Skype. Thank you for joining us here on Al Jazeera. What's your take on how negotiations are really going on, both from what the Iranian Deputy Foreign Minister had to say there, but also from the fact that Iran is now enriching uranium at 60% purity?
Well, I think we have to separate the enrichment issue from the negotiations issue. And the reason for that is the 60% enrichment was a direct reaction to the attack on Natanz, to the nuclear facility on Natanz. And so while you have the international community, the P5+1, you have the United States and Iran trying to return to the deal, there are still those parties. It appears to be that this is another sabotage attack by Israel. There are still those parties who are opposed to the deal, and so they are still continuing to use methods of sabotage to undermine the deal. But Iran is quite serious about returning to the deal, and if we do so, obviously under the obligations of the deal, Iran would not enrich at 60%, and it would come back down to 3.67.
What are the likely sticking points, do you think, in getting adherence to the deal from all sides?
I think, from the U.S. perspective, it's a little bit murkier. From the Iranian perspective, returning to compliance is fairly straightforward. It's a matter of how much uranium they have, how much, at what level they can enrich. On the U.S. side, the Trump sanctions were intended to undermine Biden's ability to return to the deal. And this is precisely something I believe the Biden administration understands. And we've seen that language from Iran Special Envoy Rob Malley, as well as from the State Department, saying that the United States understands that in order to return to compliance, sanctions that are inconsistent with the deal would have to be lifted. And so I think that's the area that you see Deputy Foreign Minister Araghchi talking about when he says, there's still some differences, but that's the idea that they're trying to work through to actually get to the place where Iran is getting the economic relief that it was promised.
Talk me through the timing of this. How time sensitive are these negotiations?
Well, if you look at the fact that Iran has an election in June, they're quite time sensitive, right? You have the Rouhani administration, which staked its claim on the deal itself and clearly wants to return to the deal. You don't know what you're going to get come June. On top of that, if Iranians see sanctions relief before the election, that can actually impact the election itself.
All right, thank you for that, for sharing your time, your analysis there. Assal Rad there, a senior fellow at the National Iranian American Council.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.